He sees the value no one else sees, and he wants you as his child to start looking at people the way he does. Watch how Samuel says it. God says this in Samuel. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by the outward opinions. They judge by the rumors they hear, the gossip they hear, the opinions they formulated in their mind. They judge based on how they feel. But the Lord looks at the heart. God looks past the layers of junk to see who he created. Every day I pray this prayer. God, let me see people the way you do. Let me see who you created them to be. Let me see them. Let me have your eyes. You've got to learn to have the eyes of God. You've got to learn the value of people. It's not a trick question, but let me ask you a question. What is the value of this? $50, right? $50, right? Not a trick question. $50 bill, right? Okay. What's the value now? $50, right? How about now? $50, right? Would you take a $50 bill that looked like this? Absolutely, right? Absolutely, right? You take a $50 bill like this, right? Right? There you go. Why? Why would you take that? Because it's worth $50, right? Guess what? I don't care the mistakes you've made. It doesn't change your value. I don't care your age. It doesn't change your value. I don't care the way you were raised. It doesn't change who you were created to be. You've got to understand value doesn't change based on the scars you've accumulated into this world. Value is based upon when you were formed in your mother's womb, sculpted with a plan by God, when He formed you saying, you are my child, you are my son and my daughter. Here's what you've got to learn in life. Seeing value in people is not about their value to you, but their value to God. When you start looking at people with God's eyes, you start seeing them as His children. How dare you spit on one of God's children? How dare you gossip and slander about one of God's children? How dare you wish harm and vengeance on one of God's children? Think about this as a parent. What do you do when you hear people talking bad about your kids? Think about what happens when you know someone wants to harm your children. Think about what happens when you hear this someone slandering. That's why you go try that with my kids and watch what my wife will do. Come on. Mama bear coming out and she ferocious. Rah. That wasn't very ferocious, right? Okay, come on. Why? Because it's your child. You see something in them. And too many times we don't fight for things because we don't see the value in things. You don't see people the way they were created, so you don't fight for them. Now let me address this as a leader. If you're a leader, if you're a person of authority over someone, you're a parent or a leader in your workplace, wherever you have, you're any place of authority, listen to me. Sometimes you're going to have to deal with people. Sometimes you're going to have to correct people. Sometimes you're going to have to give feedback that's constructive. Sometimes you're going to have to deal with problems or issues. Here's the only way you can do this. You got to go into it valuing them and with a pure heart knowing I am not doing this to make myself more of an authority figure and put them in their place. I'm doing this because I see the potential in them. I want to give them greatness and I want them to thrive and I want them to be the successful and I want them to knock it out of their park. I don't discipline my kids because it makes me feel good. I discipline my children because I want them to be better than me. I don't discipline people in my workplace because I want to put them in place and make them realize I'm the boss and they need to toe the line. It's because they're not living up to the greatness inside of them. And one day I want them to look back on their life and go, you know what? I went to levels I didn't even know I could go. I knocked it out of the park in ways I didn't know I could. I achieved things that I self-doubted myself. But because I had someone in my corner that would address blind spots and dumb spots, I went to heights I never went before. It's because I go into those moments with a pure heart because I value someone. Now, here's the kicker. Not everybody going to listen to what you say. You know how many people come up to me, Pastor Mike, I need a one-on-one with you. My life's hit rock bottom. And they'll sit down and they'll say, this is what's going on, and this is what's happening, this is in my marriage, and I'll give them advice. And you know how many people actually listen to my advice? Well, put it this way, I got better odds of winning the Powerball. Come on, somebody. Like, most people walk out and go and do what they do, right? But here's the thing. I know I'm planting seeds. And when I value people, when they walk out and do something else, I don't walk out and start writing on, get out of my church, right? I told you, oh yeah, that's what you get. You know what? I'm planting seeds and understanding. Watch what Jesus says, come on. If anyone in the household or town refuses to welcome you or listen to your message, shake its dust from your feet as you leave. Right? Sometimes people ain't gonna listen. So sometimes, you know what? You just realize in your spirit, I'm going to plant seeds, because guess what happens? 90% of the time, you know what happens? Years later, 6 months later, guess what happens? They come up to me and say, hey, Pastor Mike, you remember when you told me that? I didn't listen at first. You know, I had to learn the hard way myself. But I remember what you said, and now I'm starting to apply it to my life, and look where I'm at. Why? Because I valued them so much, I didn't write them off for immediate results. I understood I was planting seeds for the long-term game. That only comes when you value. Number 2, you can't sweep it under the rug. How many times is it easier to just ignore? Out of sight, out of mind. I just don't want to deal with it. I don't like confrontation. Just sweep it under the rug. Guess what? You keep sweeping things under the rug, sooner or later, you're going to have a big, lumpy rug you're going to trip over. And you're going to keep falling over it, because the issues don't go away just because you sweep them out of your sight. They just compound over time. So Paul's writing, and he says to these 2 ladies, now I appeal to you, girl 1, girl 2, please. Because you belong to the Lord, settle your disagreement. And watch what he says. And I ask you, my true partner, so now he's starting talking to the leader of the church, to help these 2 women. For they worked hard with me in telling others the good news. He starts looking at the leader and says, you got to deal with this. We gotta work on this. You can't just sweep it under the rug. You gotta address this. You gotta work on it. We gotta deal with this. So many times we think if we can just ignore it, it'll go away. That's like seeing a lump on your body and thinking it's gonna go away. Go ask any doctor. It gets worse over time, not better. You've gotta check that stuff in your life. Now, there are a few guidelines you need to understand. Number 1, don't address it in an emotional state. All right? When you all riled up, ain't the time to deal with it. Watch what Paul says to Timothy. He says, don't get involved in foolish, ignorant arguments that only starts fights. A servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach, and be patient with what? Difficult people. How many times, husbands and wives, maybe this is just only me and Amanda, 99% of y'all fights are over the stupidest, most ignorant things in the world, right? You getting in fights about who loaded the dishwasher wrong. You getting in a fight about who didn't put something away the right way. And it's because you're probably at an emotional state. Maybe you're stressed with something going on. Maybe not even with your spouse. Stressed with something in life. You're at a place of tension somewhere. You're tired. You're exhausted. You've been overworked. And in this emotional state, what happens is you address things while you're emotional. And what happens when you address things when you're emotional? You exaggerate things, right? Everything gets exaggerated when you're emotional, right? Ooh, I heard the tone in your voice. I saw the look on your face. I saw the way you walked out of that room with so much attitude. And what do? You all riled up. You follow them right into that room, right? Oh, no. Because when you're emotional, you over-exaggerate things. And the problem is what you're fighting about isn't even the issue. But what's happened is you have started addressing things in an over-exaggerated state. You can never get to the solution. Okay? Listen to me. Write this in your notes. Give enough time for emotions to subside, but not enough time for animosities to build. Pastor Tyler told me like this. He goes, if it still bothers you 24 hours from now, handle it within 48 hours. Okay, sometimes you were just being sensitive. You got to let it go. But if in 24 hours it's still there, like if this is a reoccurring occurrence where you get hurt often with the same thing, or it bothers you a lot of times, or it stresses you out, then you need to deal with that. Because if you just sweep it under the rug when the emotions are gone, like, well, okay, I'll just not deal with it, animosity is going to start building in your life. Okay, so we don't sweep it under the rug. We don't handle it emotional. Here's another guideline: don't address it in public. Right? Well, I got to handle it. No, don't call it out in front of people. The quickest way to lose trust with someone and to have them throw walls out is when you call them out in front of people, and you know what you're doing? You're embarrassing them. And you know what you're telling them? I don't value you. I value being right and looking right in front of other people. I got to let my pride let everyone else know who was right and who was wrong. And so we publicly say things that should be said in private. You don't get private conversations unless you've earned it in the public moments. One of the greatest examples of this woman is the woman caught in adultery when Jesus, right? What happened? She's caught in adultery. All the religious leaders publicly, we get to stone her. That's the law. That's the rules. We're going to have a little catch with some rocks at her, right? Woo! And they look at Jesus and go, what do you say about it, Jesus? And Jesus leaps down. What's he doing? And he writes in the sand, and then he looks up at them, and he says, he who's never sinned, cast the first stone. And the Bible says, one by one, they drop their stones, they walk away. And then what's Jesus do? Privately, what's he do? He looks at her and says, go and sin no more. Jesus didn't excuse her sin. He didn't excuse her problem, but he earned the right publicly to say something privately, and she knew that guy's got my best interest at heart. That guy's for me. That guy wants to see the best in my life. So when he speaks truth privately into my life, I know I can receive it because I saw what he did publicly. And so many times we wonder, why aren't our communities getting changed? And why is our country going to crud? And why is everybody doing this? It's because you're using the methodology of the Pharisees instead of the methodology of the Messiah. You got stones in your standing instead of dropping to your knees and writing. You want to model your ministry after those guys? You're going to get their results. You're going to crucify the wrong person. You want to model your ministry after the grace and the mercy of Jesus, you're going to actually see people transformed. That woman may have never been transformed if Jesus picked up stones instead of wrote in the dirt.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you never miss a video or a live stream, and give this a share to one of your friends. And remember, we go live every single Sunday. Till next time, pray God's peace.